With all that's happening in the world today, I'm looking for some solitude this time, heading for a place where I won't be disturbed for a couple of days. On a little-known island on a little-known loch, I settle down for a night during a relative lull in the pretty awful weather we've been having so far this spring. I'm hoping to see the northern lights again, and take some time out to look at the smaller animals that are now waking up from their winter slumber. I'm Feargus, and this is the middle of nowhere. Ooh, that wind is icy. Finally, we got some sunshine. Hasn't been so good lately, as I'm sure people have noticed. March and April have been pretty wet and windy, not very warm. But this is a bit of a gap where the sun is shining, so I've got to take advantage of it. And I've come to a spot which is just to the east of Elphin in a Sint. And I'm going to be heading up beyond this plantation forest to a loch on the other side, Loch Urigil, which is a complete mystery to me. I've never laid eyes on it, but I've spotted it on aerial images, and it's reasonably large, just a couple of kilometers to walk, and then I'm going to get out my packraft for the first time since the jungle trip. And there's a couple of teeny tiny little wooded islands on it, which I'd like to check out and spend the night on. So I am getting a little bit of a snack before heading out. So I haven't had proper lunch yet, but I don't really feel like lunch just yet. And I'm now gonna walk up this forestry track for the next hour or so before getting out the boat, and then let's see what we're facing. Whew. The shore of the loch. It's a fairly bleak spot for the most part, apart from that little oasis on the island that I'm heading for across there. You might be wondering why my hip belt is hanging and bouncing off my legs. And it's because it snapped off at probably the most critical seam and unirreparable point on the whole thing. Let me just put this down because it's quite uncomfortable now. Oh. This rucksack has been beyond its last legs for several years, if I'm perfectly honest. Although I didn't see this coming. And I've been putting off buying a new one because of the cost of a top of the range heavy duty rucksack, which is really what I need, which is what this was once upon a time, but it's so battered. I mean, this is all coming off. This has been tied on like that for a couple of years and still going. This is snapped. This snapped today as I was getting ready. The buckle on the hip belt went long ago, so I've just been kind of looping it around since then. And just in general, it's full of holes. It's knackered. So I guess now I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and actually get a new rucksack. I am so glad that this did not happen a couple of months ago when I was in the jungle. Because if it had happened when I was in the jungle, it would have been absolute nightmare, especially for any of you that saw those videos. The last section where we had to hack through the rainforest unplanned would have been absolutely horrendous with all that weight on my shoulders. But luckily it didn't. And this is nothing more than a minor problem, really, because it's only about a 40-minute walk back to where I parked, and I can do that on this kind of trail because it's just a forestry track, holding the weight with my arms for the most part and taking breaks to give my shoulders a rest. Long time coming. I don't need it now for the next 24 hours anyway, because I am going to throw it in a bin bag and hide it behind those big metal crates over there, and then head out on the boat. So let's get the boat sorted. That's crazy. My tiny little home for the night. Just gonna go around the back of it to get out of the wind. I think I found the sunbathing area. Listen to that. That's what I come for. Okay. Right. Let's have a look. What a lovely little patch. Beautiful little birch trees covered in Spanish moss. I love it. Ground is firm and dry. It'll do. This will do for tonight. Right. Sort myself out. Well, what do you know? The ticks are out already. All the little babies ready for their springtime feast. Bastards. Flick them off. Maybe I should keep my shoes on. It's gone very quiet. The wind has dropped off to almost nothing, and it's just a really, really peaceful moment now. It's clouding over, which is a shame because actually, just like last time, there is currently a red alert suggesting that if it was dark enough and clear enough, there'd be a really good display of aurora to the north. But I'm not too optimistic that I'm going to be able to see it because the sky is mostly covered with cloud. I've got the GoPro over there on a time lapse just in case I get lucky, and I am going to keep an eye out. But it's really, really nice being out and just being able to sit out here, even though it's really cold. The fact that the wind has dropped off, I can just wrap up in all of my insulating stuff and sit out in this lovely period of the day when it's getting dark. It's very good for the soul, and I really need it now. You know, these trips that I do out camping, I do them because I really want to see these places and I really enjoy doing it, but it's also an essential antidepressant, really. It stops the build-up of stress in its tracks. And with the way things are going in the world at the moment, whether it's hearing about the madness in the Middle East or Ukraine, or how politics are developing on both sides of the Atlantic, it helps me to calm down because hearing about all of that sort of stuff, as well as general everyday stresses, it puts me probably more quickly than most people in fight or flight mode, in which case I am just running on adrenaline a lot of the time. And if that goes on for too long, then I just pop and become depressed. And then it will take a long time for me to get out of that. But being alone in a place where I can just be like this is a massive help. And coming out of trips like this, after having that time to reflect on all of the inputs and all the experiences that I've had over the last week or two, I end up coming out with a much greater sense of what I think is important in life, which is essentially being nicer to each other. The world at the moment is sorely lacking in, an understanding that people are different from each other, and that's okay. And, we can be more accepting and more understanding and try to listen to each other better rather than just shouting and whether it's on Twitter or X or whatever, it's just, we need to stop and listen and have a bit of empathy and have a bit of patience with each other. Anyway, that's my rant for the day. I am trying to be at peace now, and it helps me to think more along those lines. So, are we going to get a visible aurora? Not looking good. Might end up in the tent very soon. I was just about to go into the tent, and then I saw that there were some bats flying along this shore, because there are some insects along here I noticed earlier on. Just wait for them to show up again. There we go. very peaceful night. Beautiful time lapse from last night. Oh, there we go. A brief red flash of the aurora, but that would have been too faint for me to see very easily with the naked eye. And immediately afterwards it clouded over completely and stayed that way for the rest of the night. So I just went to sleep. Looks beautiful on the camera though. There we go. Well, the deer are getting here somehow, and the flies are loving it. These are yellow dung flies, and there is a male, which are the bigger yellow coloured ones, carrying the female around. I don't know if they're actually in the process of mating or if he's just holding on until she's willing to mate and just won't let go while she feeds on the poo underneath her feet. It's fascinating. I've never seen them doing that before. I've seen other bugs doing that before. I suspect that the deer are able to get out mainly by walking, because from the air the loch doesn't seem all that deep, and there's this island and then there's another island about 30-40 meters across, and then there is the mainland. So that's probably how they're coming here. That's the most exciting macro action so far. Oh, God. Well, that was predictably painful. Kind of reminded me of the days when I was 10, 11 years old and I would go camping in the hills where I grew up in Ireland, and I would have some cheap backpack or even just a black bin liner to carry everything in, and it would be so painful on the shoulders by the end of it because there was no such thing as a hip belt on the old stuff that we had. Properly geared up people in other countries had that sort of thing, but we never saw anybody with it in Ireland. But it's done now. I have maxed out my rucksack to the end of its tether, quite literally, or I should say to the end of its many tethers. I'll probably hold on to it because that thing has been with me for, I don't know, 12, 13 years. And it's been on all of my biggest expeditions. It's been through so much. We have been through so much together. So either it'll get put away in a cupboard or in the attic, not to get rid of, but I might do what Adam suggested when I was in the jungle and cut a piece of it off and stitch it onto the new rucksack, just for some kind of continuity. Oh, I can hear it starting to rain. That's good timing. It's barely rained at all. There were a few drops last night when I was in the tent, but apart from that, it's held together and been dry over this 2-day trip. It was a pleasant little camp. It was exactly what my head needed, as I said, and not the most spectacular of locations, but I love the mystery of going somewhere new that looks really enticing on aerial images. So that's all I have for you with this video. As always, if you haven't subscribed, please do give me a thumbs up, and I'd also like to leave you with a question, and you can put your answers in the comments if you fancy. Have you ever maxed out a piece of your gear to the point where it was literally falling apart at the seams and you kept on going and kept on going and kept on going? And what was the event that made you finally have to admit that it was the end of the road and get rid of it? So let me know in the comments below. And until next time, as I said yesterday, be good to each other.